The movie opens with Stanleyville, the pencil capital of the world, where James Jr. and Cindy Green sit nervously in a meeting with the United States Adoption Services. Their fate rests in the hands of Yvette Onat, the social worker, who raises an eyebrow at the single name they listed, Timothy, in the space meant for detailing their parenting experience. Jim and Cindy explain that they intend to tell their story during the time they've been given, a story that began about a year ago in September. Earlier, the couple had visited Dr. Leslie only to be told bluntly that they couldn't have children. After years of trying, the crushing news leaves them heartbroken. The ride home is tense and quiet, made worse when Cindy witnesses a mother and her toddler in the elevator, triggering tears she struggles to hold back. Minutes after crossing the Stanleyville border, she finally breaks down, yet life moves on. Cindy returns to her work at the Crudstaff House and the Pencil Museum, while Jim heads back to the pencil factory. There, his colleague Tommy hands him a flyer about a town meeting on Tuesday as the factory faces possible closure. That evening, the couple returns home, and the silence between them grows almost unbearable. Cindy retreats to the garden to vent her frustrations, leaving Jim to watch helplessly from the window. Later, in the nursery they had prepared, she weeps alone before embracing her husband, claiming she is ready to move on. She then heads to the living room to watch her gardening show, or at least pretend to. Jim follows her, turns off the TV, and expresses that he cannot move past something they had dreamed of for years. He wants them to imagine having a child, even if just for one night. Inspired, he grabs a notepad and writes down the first quality their child would have: resilience. Together they jot down hopes for honesty, musical talent, a kind heart, and a sense of humor. They dream their child will be a glass half full person, and even imagine him scoring the winning goal in sports, laughing and waving at the empty air as though it's real. As their laughter fades, Jim quietly places all the notes into a small wooden box and, hand in hand with Cindy, buries it in the garden, a small act of hope that sets the stage for the miracle about to unfold. That night, after carefully burying the wooden box in their garden, Jim and Cindy fall asleep, unaware that a powerful thunderstorm is brewing. The wind howls violently, rattling doors, but the true surprise comes when lightning strikes directly where their box lies. The sound jolts Jim awake, and by the time he rushes downstairs, the storm has inexplicably ceased. Locking the back door and heading to the fridge for a drink, he glimpses a small shadow dart past, but finds nothing there. Shrugging it off, he returns to bed, only to find Cindy in the bathroom, and the same shadow disappears again. Together, cautious and curious, they traverse the house, turning on lights as they go. Searching every corner, they find nothing, until Cindy notices their wedding photo now smeared with mud. Alarmed, she hurries upstairs to the nursery, where both freeze in astonishment. There, crouched on the floor and covered in dirt, is Timothy, a mysterious 10-year-old boy. As Cindy gently cleans him up, Jim heads to the kitchen to call 911, unsure how to explain what's happening. Then he notices something extraordinary outside the window, the same spot in the garden where they buried the box. Rushing back upstairs, Jim is stopped by Cindy, who directs him to look at Timothy's feet. Leaves, alive and green, are growing from them. Timothy calmly tells them not to question the leaves, but allows them to examine them, heightening their amazement. Cindy quietly steps outside to the garden, only to find the buried box shattered and their notes scattered across the earth, the hole exactly the size of Timothy. It's a miracle that defies explanation. Minutes later, Donnie from the local police arrives with a partner to follow up on the 911 call. Jim quickly invents a story about raccoons, while the officers, noticing the wet yard, jokingly remind him to ration his water. Jim claims it rained, though apparently only inside his house, and the officers accept it, focusing on his safety. Inside, Cindy dresses Timothy and sets him on the kitchen counter for a late-night snack, while Jim quietly covers the garden hole and joins them, marveling at the miraculous child who has suddenly entered their lives. For reasons they can't quite explain, Timothy insists on calling them Mom and Dad instead of their real names, and the gesture touches Jim and Cindy deeply. The couple steps aside to gather their thoughts, realizing that Timothy was the only boy name they had ever chosen, and they can't help but agree that he was meant for them. When they return to the kitchen, Timothy is fast asleep, so Jim carefully carries him to his room, while Cindy follows quietly, both marveling at the miraculous child who has entered their lives. At this point, Miss Yvette interrupts, confessing that she has never heard a story like theirs before. She reminds them that their time is limited, but Jim and Cindy press on, eager to tell everything. The next morning, while the couple is still asleep, Cindy's boisterous sister, Brenda Best, pounds on the door, having forgotten that it's their turn to host the family picnic. Timothy, always the early riser, heads downstairs to answer the door, prompting his parents to wake immediately. Cindy rushes to intervene while Jim scoops up Timothy and they quietly improvise. Jim takes off his socks and Cindy slips them onto Timothy's feet, ensuring that he won't reveal anything about his leaves or the garden miracle. Timothy nods, understanding perfectly. Within the hour, the picnic is in full swing. Tables are arranged outside and Jim announces Timothy's adoption, though he quickly cautions everyone not to ask too many questions. Brenda ignores the warning, bombarding Cindy with queries, who eventually retreats to join her husband and son by the grill. Unexpectedly, Jim's father, James Big Jim Green Sr., arrives, and Timothy runs to greet him, calling him Grandpa as if they've known each other forever. Cindy pulls him aside to introduce him to her Aunt Mel and Uncle Bub, the relatives who practically raised her. The humor and charm they had hoped for in their child shine through as Timothy greets everyone enthusiastically, eliciting a delighted smile from Uncle Bub. Soon, Big Jim suggests a game of dodgeball with the neighborhood kids. Within minutes, Timothy is dodging and weaving, knocking a few kids down like bowling pins, prompting a worried Jim to step in and give him pointers. As the sun peeks through the clouds, Timothy spreads his arms to bask in its warmth, the only child left standing on the field. His gaze falls on Joni Jerome, riding her bike, and he is immediately captivated by her beauty. Big Jim, unbothered, throws the ball straight at Timothy's face, and once again, Yvette interrupts, asking how Jim reacted. Cindy responds that he promised to be a better father than his own, while she emphasizes her goal to ensure their child is treated as normal. With that, they continue their extraordinary story. Cindy immediately calls Reggie, a botanist, who is astonished by the health of the leaves growing from Timothy's legs. When he tries to trim them, his clippers break apart, leaving him speechless. Soon after, Timothy is enrolled in school, and Cindy packs him a meticulously prepared bag, complete with a first aid kit and every essential. She heads to work, only to be scolded by her boss, Bernice Crudstaff, for being late, just as she receives a disturbing phone call. At the same time, Jim is at the pencil factory where his boss, Franklin Crudstaff, discusses layoffs. Cindy interrupts, urging him to get to the school immediately. They find Timothy in the principal's office, visibly upset. It turns out he was bullied but refuses to reveal names, lying instead that it was an art project accident. During the bullying, Joni, his crush, happened to walk in, and the two shared a quiet, tender moment as she placed a cherry on his head. Jim, having been bullied himself as a child, is determined to confront the situation on his son's behalf. Timothy whispers the names to him, revealing that the culprits are Mr. Crudstaff's boys. Within the hour, Jim drives to the Crudstaff household to face his boss. True to form, the man tries to intimidate Jim, but Cindy and Timothy join him outside, confronting the situation together. Once again, Yvette interrupts, eager to know if the Crudstaff boys took responsibility. Returning to the story, Bobby, Mr. Crudstaff's eldest, complains that Timothy never cried or complained during the bullying. His mother, Pixie, cuts him off and invites Timothy to Bobby's birthday pool party, though no one confirmed whether he could swim. Determined to attend, Timothy climbs onto the diving board in his tube socks and sees Joni again. Wanting to impress her, he jumps, but sinks to the bottom like an anchor. Joni notices immediately, while the others remain distracted singing happy birthday to Bobby. She dives in after him, trying to remove his socks, but Timothy resists and kicks her off, surfacing alongside her as they both gasp for air. Joni, however, is frustrated, her nose bleeding from the encounter. Later, as they head home, Timothy admits he kicked Joni because he feared she had seen his leaves. His parents advise him to run if he ever sees her again, but when he tries, Joni refuses to let him escape. Timothy races through the woods, eventually stopping to catch his breath. At that moment, Joni corners him and reveals a gruesome scar on her right shoulder. Witnessing her scar, Timothy is struck by her bravery, and from that moment on, they form an unspoken bond, practically becoming friends. Timothy and Joni wander through the woods together, even sharing a bike ride that coincidentally passes by the pencil museum where his mom works. He gives Cindy a small wave, prompting her to immediately call Jim to look out the window, concerned at how quickly their son is making friends with girls. Once home, Timothy secretly slips one of his leaves into an envelope, labeling it with Joni's name. Just then, his parents arrive to drive him to the hospital, as something serious has happened with Uncle Bub's health. At the hospital, emotions run high, but Uncle Bub requests that only Timothy remain with him. The moment everyone else leaves, the two begin joking and laughing together, and for the first time in a long while, the old man laughs out loud. Those watching from the door are overjoyed to see him so happy. Unfortunately, the moment causes one of Timothy's leaves to wither and fall off. Alarmed, he shoots his father a worried look as Uncle Bub's monitoring machine starts beeping frantically, and within seconds, the room fills with panicking visitors. Timothy calmly hides the fallen leaf beneath his feet, maintaining his composure. Determined to help him fit in, Jim and Cindy take Timothy to meet Cal, the coach of the school soccer team, the Erasers. The coach is initially hesitant to give Timothy a chance, and despite falling flat on his first 2 attempts to show his skills, Cal reluctantly decides to let him play. Cindy is uneasy when Joni shows up, mentioning it while practicing at home with Timothy. Jim tries to distract her by reminiscing about how he and Cindy met at Timothy's age. Eventually, Timothy manages to kick the ball with incredible skill, prompting a celebration with both parents. Just as things seem to be settling, Jim receives a call to Franklin's office and is handed a list of employees slated for layoffs, leaving him dejected for the rest of the day. Even during dinner at home, he seems uninterested in Timothy's jokes and leaves the table. Not wanting him to feel alone, Cindy brings dinner to Jim on the floor, where they reminisce about how they first met. Jim shows Timothy a collection of notebooks filled with ideas for inventions, inspiring the boy to ask if they can create a new kind of pencil instead of downsizing the factory. After dropping the idea about creating a new pencil, Timothy rushes off, leaving his parents determined not to disappoint him. Together, Jim and Cindy begin experimenting and soon discover that leaves can be used to make pencils. Meanwhile, Timothy and Joni continue spending time together, building a perfect sanctuary in the woods where they can relax and be themselves. Over time, Jim and Cindy develop the first prototype of their leaf pencil and proudly present it to an excited Timothy. As always, Yvette interrupts their story, eager to ensure that every detail is accurate. Undeterred, the couple continues their tale. On Monday, Take Your Kid to Work day coincides with a celebration for Bernice, Cindy's boss, during which a painting of her is commissioned. Neither Bernice nor Timothy seems impressed by the artist's work, prompting Timothy to offer to try his hand at it. Bernice surprisingly gives him a chance, leaving a nervous Cindy to watch as Timothy takes off her glasses and hairpin to capture her true essence. For hours, he sketches, enthralled by the glint in her eyes and the waves of her hair, even going so far as to draw a small thatch of hair on her chin. Unfortunately, Timothy loses another leaf in the process, hiding it quickly when Cindy walks in with tea. Cindy is impressed with his work until she notices the thatch of hair. She urges him to erase it, but Bernice intervenes, seizing the sketch. Spotting the detail, Bernice calls her employees and questions what else has been kept from her. Cindy, feeling frustrated, inadvertently spills all the negative thoughts she's harbored about Bernice, leading to her dismissal, an outcome she bears with surprisingly little regret. Later, Timothy joins his dad at the factory, witnessing how pencils are made. Inspired, Jim approaches Franklin with the idea for the new leaf pencil. While Franklin doesn't take him seriously, Jim leaves the prototype and proposal on his desk regardless. The following day, the Erasers play a soccer match, and Timothy serves as water boy. Big Jim stops by, catching his grandson in action, but leaves upon seeing Timothy handing water to the coach. Life continues, yet Cindy and Jim cannot shake the feeling that their son is hiding something. They also worry about how much time Timothy spends with Joni. Meanwhile, the two kids keep enhancing their sanctuary with fallen leaves, basking in the sunlight and enjoying their secret world. After parting ways, a concerned Cindy tracks down Joni to have a word. The young girl remains unfazed, reassuring Cindy that she would never let anything happen to Timothy. As they talk, Joni walks down a crooked path adorned with fallen leaves until they arrive at their secret sanctuary. Surrounded by a curtain of leaves, she steps inside to add a few finishing touches, while Cindy, watching from a distance, is amazed by what Joni and Timothy have built together, realizing in that moment how wrong she had been about the girl. Yvette interrupts again, curious about what they would do next. Despite knowing they need to impress her, Jim and Cindy honestly admit that they would probably just make new mistakes. Match day arrives once more for the Erasers, and Timothy finds himself benched again. His father tries to get him into the game, but Coach Cal refuses. Jim watches as Timothy dutifully hands him a cup of water. Meanwhile, Brenda, Cindy's boastful sister, can't stop talking about her own children's achievements, prompting Cindy to claim that Timothy is musically gifted to save face. It turns out Brenda hosts an annual family concert and invites Timothy to perform. Although Cindy tries desperately to get him out of it, Timothy is unfazed. He inspects all the instruments before finally choosing the gong. Playing a tune familiar to Jim, he soon has both parents joining in, singing and dancing in their own quirky style. The excitement continues well into the night, and they make sure to tell Timothy how much he rocked the concert. After putting him to bed, Jim and Cindy reflect on the child before them, realizing that Timothy possesses all the attributes they had once written down: his heart, humor, creativity, and resilience. Confident in their son's potential, Jim predicts that Timothy will score the winning goal in the upcoming championship. In his room, Timothy stares sadly at another withered leaf, hiding it beneath the globe by his bed. Sunday arrives, and the Erasers head to the championship match against the Bone Crushers. Cindy helps Timothy at the water cooler, while Big Jim considers leaving, only to be convinced by his grandson to stay. Timothy even approaches Coach Cal, insisting that he will make a difference in the game, though Cal remains skeptical. Joni arrives holding a placard to cheer him on. As the match progresses, the Bone Crushers equalize and time begins to run out. When one of the Erasers is knocked down, a flash of excitement crosses Jim's face, though he keeps it hidden until the player is confirmed fine. Coach Cal announces that they will continue with 10 players, but Jim steps in, calling the referee aside to insist that Timothy be allowed to play. Despite Cal's objections, the referee overrides him. Shortly afterward, Timothy is led onto the field to a loud round of applause. Coach Cal assigns him a safe position and instructs him to stay put. Hyped up, Jim moves closer to his father, shouting joyfully as Cindy tells her sister that Timothy is going to score the winning goal. But their excitement quickly turns to concern when they notice that Timothy is standing completely still as the game goes on. Even Joni wears a wary expression. Jim urges his son to move, while Cal insists he stay put, resulting in a standoff. The boy remains motionless. Soon, the sun peeks out from behind the clouds, and Timothy instinctively spreads his arms, letting the warmth wash over him. His parents urge him to join the game, but he takes his time, savoring the moment. Then he spots Joni holding a placard and cheering him on, giving him the motivation he needs. Grabbing the ball, Timothy begins to weave through the field with clever footwork and quick sidesteps, leaving everyone who doubted him utterly baffled. Cindy can't help rubbing it in to Brenda's face, though Jim takes even greater satisfaction in outshining his own father. With only seconds left on the clock, Timothy continues his dazzling maneuvers, and when the moment comes, he strikes the ball with perfect precision. The goalkeeper struggles, but in a twist of fate, Timothy's shot ends up in his own team's net. Excitement turns instantly to disappointment. Heads bow, the crowd disperses angrily, and Timothy remains oblivious to the chaos he has caused. Once home, he retreats to his room and retrieves another withered leaf, hiding it carefully beneath his socks. Outside his door, Jim and Cindy argue fiercely about who was the worst parent, escalating their fight all the way into the kitchen, complete with slamming counters. Exhausted, Timothy steps outside and finds the front porch blanketed in fallen leaves, kicking them as he wishes his parents would stop fighting, though they do not. Eventually, he joins them in the kitchen, wanting to share something important. At that moment, Yvette interrupts, pointing at the wall clock to indicate that their time is up. Jim respects her decision but refuses to leave, so Yvette allows them to continue. Later, the Erasers host an informal dinner with all the parents in attendance, including Jim and Cindy. For the first time, Timothy formally introduces Joni to his parents. Confident and unafraid, she reveals the scar on her shoulder. Timothy proudly calls her the coolest girl in the world and leaves with her, while his parents give them a moment alone, only to realize afterward that it's dark and the two are still minors. Outside, Timothy and Joni share a private conversation, during which he reveals some heartbreaking news he couldn't bring himself to tell his parents. When Jim and Cindy finally come out, they find Joni in tears, unsure of how to react. Timothy begins walking toward them, but Joni runs into his arms, hugging him tightly as if it might be the last time they ever see each other. Timothy then approaches his parents and confesses that he loves Joni. Jim, puzzled, asks why it seems like he broke up with her, and Timothy explains that he let her go, accusing them of not understanding. In truth, they don't. Meanwhile, civil unrest erupts at the town meeting, with people shouting and complaining over rumors of the factory shutting down. Just when hope seems lost, Mr. Joseph Crudstaff, the CEO, announces the launch of the new leaf pencil. The crowd goes wild, and Joseph proudly praises his son for inventing something so revolutionary. Almost immediately, Timothy steps up to the microphone, coinciding with Franklin's appearance on stage. He makes it clear that his parents came up with the idea, but Franklin tries to discredit him by bringing up the championships. Reflexively, Jim and Cindy defend their son, and Jim even threatens his boss, earning support from Big Jim. Bernice, who has been silent until now, grabs the microphone and asks Franklin to explain the leaf pencil concept, but he flops spectacularly. She then turns to the Green family. Cindy takes the lead, describing how leaves became a significant part of their lives since Timothy arrived. When she struggles to explain why, Timothy reveals the extraordinary truth: leaves grow on his legs. The crowd reacts with disbelief and laughter until Reggie, the botanist, confirms the story. Still, some skepticism remains, and Bernice requests tangible evidence. Cindy reassures Timothy not to feel pressured, but he knows it's time. On stage, he lifts one pant leg to reveal nothing, then the other to show a single browning leaf. Fascinated, Bernice uses the moment to motivate the crowd and get everyone back to work. Jim quickly gathers his son and wife, and the family rushes home together. During the car ride, they try to question Timothy about his leaves, but he keeps the mystery intact, refusing to reveal anything further. They return home, and just like the night they first found him, a strong wind begins to blow. Jim and Cindy attempt to question Timothy once more, but he insists that they all head inside, and they comply. Barely inside the living room, Timothy reveals why he kept his secret. There was nothing they could have done. Sadness fills their eyes as he explains that he will cease to exist once all his leaves fall. Jim anxiously asks how much time they have left, but Timothy simply ruffles his trousers, letting the last leaf drop. The couple crouches to his eye level, begging him not to leave and expressing how they are only beginning to understand what parenting truly means. Timothy hugs them tightly, urging them never to give up. Suddenly, a clap of thunder shakes the house. All the lights go out, and Jim and Cindy realize their son is gone. Panic mixes with grief as they cry, fishing out a flashlight and rushing to the garden. They dig through the pouring rain with their bare hands until they uncover the small box, perfectly intact, bringing fresh tears of relief and joy. After finishing their story, Yvette asks what was inside the box. Quietly, Cindy retrieves it from her purse and hands over the letter inside. Yvette and her aide examine it in silence before returning it, claiming they have seen all they need. In the letter, Timothy explains how he gave away all his leaves, one to Aunt Brenda attached to a duck whistle, one to Uncle Bub tucked into his pocket at the funeral, one to Bernice Crudstaff after her sketch, one to Coach Cal with their second place trophy, one to Reggie simply because he liked them, and one to Grandpa Jim with a picture of him and his son. Joni, his one true love, received 2 leaves fashioned into the most beautiful earrings. Timothy believed his parents were the best in the world, and the adoption agency agreed. Sometime later, Yvette arrives at the Green household with a little girl named Lily. Jim and Cindy contain their excitement and exchange approving glances with Yvette as they welcome the new addition. Together, the family walks into the warmth of their home. Timothy, selfless as ever, had changed the lives of everyone around him. His positivity and outlook on life left a lasting mark, shaping his parents into better people. Sometimes, losing something makes room to gain something of far greater value.